All right, people, let's try this again. We had some technical difficulties on our stream that lasted for about 3 minutes there. You know, it is freezing. If you're a Floridian, you're freezing right now. I walked out, I was in sweatpants and a hoodie, had the hood over my head when walking the dog this morning. It's in the 40s. If you're a Floridian, that's freezing. There are iguanas falling out of the trees. They are not dead. They freeze because they're cold-blooded. They go unconscious. They fall into the street. If you are a nice person, you can move them to the side. Eventually, when it warms up, they will wake up. But apparently, the pipes that send us across the internet, they're freezing too. That's what we're dealing with over here. But I sound okay now? We're good? We're back? All right. Apparently, I sounded a little robotic or digitized or something. So let me just quickly repeat what I said at the top of the show moments ago. This is what Groundhog Day must feel like. Today is Veterans Day, and I actually did not even realize it until about an hour before the show today, because I wake up and I do the stupid scrolling on the Twitter machine and all that stuff. And, you know, in the old days, on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, MLK, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, you'd see like a lot of people acknowledging the day, right? And now it's all devolved into just fighting and back and forth nonsense and doom scrolling and everything else. So I really did not even realize it was Veterans Day, which is one of the most important holidays that we have, because if it was not for the veterans, if it was not for those who serve, none of us would be, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the freedom to fight about nonsense all day long. And I say that with all due irony. So I thought one nice way to honor the veterans was with this very short quote from Ronald Reagan that I think gets it perfectly and succinctly. Some people live an entire lifetime and wonder if they have ever made a difference in the world. A veteran does not have that problem. So any of you who are veterans out there watching today, I thank you for your service. We are going to dive into all of the day's news, mostly about the shutdown, which is now over. Thank God. Oh, he raised the roof again. The government is back, zippity dippity. Yes, we just needed a couple Democrats to jump over the aisle and open up the government, and it finally happened. Listen to this from Breaking Report. The U.S. Senate has officially passed the CR to end the shutdown, sending the bill back to the House. And why don't we name the Democrats who were so brave to jump across the aisle and open the government, do their job? It was Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Dick Durbin from Illinois, John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, Tim Kaine from Virginia, Jackie Rosen from Nevada, and Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire. Here is Scott Jennings over on CNN trying to explain to this rather young Democrat pundit, whose name need not even be mentioned because you'll never hear from again, that this was all the fault of the Democrats.
Scott, with all respect, you cannot put on the American people that Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government? Democrats or Republicans?
Who was
casting the votes?
Scott, who was wanting to cut SNAP benefits?
Nobody.
And
Republicans
playing
voted
up,
to fund SNAP 15 times.
SNAP benefits after two courts ruled that it was unallowed?
Republicans voted to fund SNAP 15 times. Democrats voted to defund it 15
and you talk
times.
About
and
the
now
affordable,
it took, and we had to get 8 to join us.
Health care.
Oh, guys, I barely listened to that clip because I was told when we threw to it, that kid there is Michael Douglas's son. So I guess he's a Sirius XM host. Michael Douglas, who might be my favorite actor. Do you guys know that? Michael Douglas, I think he might be my actual favorite actor of all time. Used to work out at the same gym, Equinox, on the Upper West Side with him years ago. We had a couple nice interactions. So that Lefty Ding Dong is his son. Yes, oh, that's so disappointing. It all just sucks. Doesn't it just suck and blow? Oh, man. Well, anyway, the kid is a little confused as to what happened here because as Jennings points out, all they had to do, if the Democrats were so concerned about SNAP and they were so concerned about all of the government stuff, because there's nothing that they love more than the government, all they needed was a couple to jump across the aisle, which is what they did. And now, of course, we'll have more on this in just a second, the lunatics, meaning the AOC, moron Zamboni branch of the Democrat Party. Now they're going to try to take out anyone who decided to open up the government. Here is Jennings explaining to Abby Phillips, dim-witted Abby Phillips, that the government is going to open after the election. Of course, he did this on election night. Ding, ding, ding.
How are Republicans going to use leverage in their fight with Democrats when the Democrats are actually the ones with the upper hand in the eyes of voters?
Oh, I'm sure Democrats will be more than happy to open the government now. The election's over. I mean, part of the reason they shut it down was to get through tonight.
I mean, I
would suspect they'll be glad to open it up by the end of the week.
Adam Schiff, he was like, hold the line.
AOC, there's lots of rumors of people wanting to open it.
Look, I don't see what is the incentive for Democrats to back down when voters are basically saying Trump's not doing enough, it's the Republicans' fault, and then they basically handed the keys in this past election to the Democrats. Where's the leverage?
Again, these are blue states electing Democrats, not a shock. Democrats clearly wanted this shutdown to get through Election Day. I do think they are facing pressure from their internal coalitions. The unions, the air traffic controllers, the government employee unions are desperate to get the government back open. They're feeling a little bit of internal heat. But again, the election's now over. I'm sure tomorrow morning phones will start ringing and it'll be open soon enough. This was a political shutdown, and that's what they did, and now we're through the election.
Yeah, so that was on election night, obviously, and Jennings predicted it perfectly. Like, that is dart right in the center, absolute perfection. They did this through the election, ginned up the base. But again, you can't look too much into the results of the election because it was just blue cities and states that went bluer. That doesn't diminish the disaster that is incoming in New York City. But it is not some giant bellwether for the country. As always, Abby Phillips, it's like she barely knows what's coming out of her mouth as she says it. And I don't know that more people were attacking Trump over this. And the Democrats did completely cave post-election. Here is Scott Jennings, though, explaining, and now this is from yesterday, here is Jennings explaining how the shutdown actually has exposed the failure of the health insurance companies, because there is something legitimate to talk about around that.
This whole thing has exposed this outlandish money laundering scheme where your tax dollars go right into insurance companies and your health insurance never gets better, your health care never gets better, your health outcomes never get better. That's what we have exposed here. So what our responsibility is as a Republican Party, how do we stop getting your tax money to insurance companies, and how do we put more actual money into the health care of the American people? Because I can assure you, writing a bunch of checks to insurance companies doesn't make your health care any better.
Right. So he's hitting a couple things there. I mean, first, he's broadly hitting, like, we should really be thinking in a new way about health care. Right. This is what the MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement that became so integral in allowing MAGA to return just a year ago, is all about. Right. Like, we keep thinking, oh, we should just do whatever we want with our bodies. We should eat all of this crap and the seed oils and the poisons and all of the sugar and all of the stuff and the high fructose corn syrup. We should do all that. And then we should just medicate the high hell out of ourselves. And the drug companies and the health insurance companies might subsidize some of that, but we'll all become fat and incapacitated. And by the way, we're all going to have to pay for everybody who does that, which really makes no sense. If you think about universal health care in some sense, it's like, why should all of the people who actually do take care of themselves, who do eat right, who do work out, who do the right things, if you're doing all of those things for yourself, why should the government be taking money away from you to then subsidize the health care for people that don't do any of those things? I mean, that's one of the problems when you start doing everything universally. You actually punish people who do things right, whether it's play by the rules as it pertains to economics and law, or whether it's literally taking care of their own lives. But he does make a broad point, which is that the Republicans should be now thinking about, okay, how do we rethink this thing so we stop taking dollars and just giving it to health care companies that don't make that the results of our healthcare does not turn out to be better or anything else. But the bumper sticker on all of this is that we didn't have the government for 40 days. We're all okay. Everyone's okay here. We didn't have it for 40 days, and it was all pointless. The Democrats who were screaming, this is going to kill people, people are going to starve, and blah, blah, blah. All they ended up doing by having these 6-7 Democrats jump across the aisle was signing a clean CR, which is exactly what always happens. So this was completely on the Democrats. I hate to say it, but Michael Douglas's son was wrong. And they got nothing out of it other than the few Democrats that jumped across the aisle to do the right thing will now pay the price with the lunatic radical base. But here is Senate Majority Leader Mike Johnson explaining to Jake Tapper that this was just nothing. This was just a pure political show.
So every Republican in the House, every single one, which doesn't happen very often, voted for the clean government funding bill on September 19th. Will they all vote for this compromise, do you think?
I believe they will. The long national nightmare is almost coming to an end now, the beginning of the end, as I said this morning in my press conference. It was long overdue, and the irony is, Jake, it really was a shutdown about nothing. I mean, what we're voting on is effectively exactly what we offered them several weeks back. We've added some appropriations bills now, which we're in favor of because it's getting us back to the regular order. We'll take care of some other details, but I don't think Chuck Schumer got anything out of this other than a political show, and sadly, I think that's what he was after the whole time.
Yeah, so remember, it's basically, as Johnson lays out there, it's the same bill pretty much. The Democrats got no extractions. They got nothing out of this, but they were the ones that were screaming people were going to die and people were going to starve and everything else. And then 6 or 7 of them had enough and they caved. Now, interestingly, I thought this was really great. On October 23rd, which was 19 days ago, Senator John Kennedy predicted exactly how the shutdown was going to end. And watch this.
But if Chuck told some of the Democrats to go join the Taliban, they would say, where's the line, Mr. Leader? But that's why we're in a shutdown.
Yeah.
And here's how it's going to end, I predict. Chuck will go to 6 or 8 of his members and say, look, we got to get this thing back open. So I want you to vote to open it up, but don't tell anybody I told you so. I'm going to keep voting no so I can try to save face.
Yeah.
But you vote to open it back up.
Yes.
Now, nobody will be fooled. And the risk that Senator Schumer runs by doing that, there's a fine line between looking like you're in charge and mutiny. He doesn't want it to look like a mutiny because then he looks weaker. But that's how this thing will get open. Because the Democrats know they're not on solid.
So isn't that something? 19 days ago, John Kennedy got it perfectly right. It was 8 senators. We read their names there. Chuck Schumer was not in that list, right? So Chuck Schumer did exactly what Kennedy laid out. He did not vote for reopening the government, in essence, to save face, to make it look like to the progressives, see, Bernie, AOC, don't murder me, don't behead me just yet, right? Because I'm still with you guys. I don't have control of these other guys. And whether he coordinated for them to do it or they were just like, we've all had enough of this charade, we're not going to placate to the lunatic progressives like you, or whatever the answer to that is, it wasn't that hard to see what was going to happen here, right? And they got nothing out of it. And the irony is, while John Kennedy's right that Schumer, in essence, was trying to save face, Schumer gets nothing out of this. They hate him even more now because for them, it's like, all right, Schumer, whether you voted for it or not is irrelevant. You couldn't control these 8 radicals who voted to open up the government and give the SNAP benefits back to the people. We're for the people. We keep telling everyone's going to starve, but we're against opening the government so that they don't starve. It's just mind-numbingly retarded. Here's John Kennedy again. This is yesterday.
Look, Senator Schumer chose to have this shutdown. And it's clear, it was clear at the time, it's clear now. He just dug up more snakes than he could kill. His demands were unreasonable. They were so unreasonable that they weren't even within the realm of possibility on my side of the aisle. And we were prepared to just sit there as much as it hurt. I mean, we didn't have a choice. We couldn't possibly do what Senator Schumer wanted us to do.
So the point of all of that is to show you that this was all predicted. The Democrats got nothing out of it. And much like the Scott Jennings thing, where he basically is like, yeah, they'll get through the election and then they'll open it up. There are some people that honestly do assess these things, and that's how you can see the results of it. So congratulations, Democrats, but really congratulations, Chuck Schumer. You're in a lot of trouble, but we'll get to that in just a second. Let me talk about Noble Gold for just a moment. Guys, gold has officially gone mainstream. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it and invest in a simple way? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Their specialists are trained to help advisors like you go from confused to confident. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA or want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes sure the process is simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's DaveRubinGold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. A guy who doesn't have a very strong future. His name is Chuck Schumer. Here he is after losing control of the party, having eight of the non-complete lunatic Democrats jump to the other side, abandon him. Here he is promising to continue the fight.
But let me be clear. However this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue. Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin. And make no mistake about it, the American people know who is inflicting this health care trauma on them: Donald Trump and the Republicans.
In a weird way, I have sympathy with Chuck Schumer. Not that I have any sort of respect for him as a legislator, and he's kind of been wrong on everything. I don't think he is, as I've said many times, I don't think he is like a true America-hating loon like the progressive base. He isn't. And that's partly why they hate him. But he was trying to lead a party without really leading the party, right? Like, he needed to do some housekeeping within his own party. He didn't do it. You let the inmates in. Now they're running the asylum. If John Kennedy is right, and he basically said to those 8 guys, you guys go ahead and do it, I'll say no to save face, that didn't work either, because they're coming for you no matter what. So he really just got outmaneuvered here. But it's not just him. It's also Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, who, again, I also don't think like that. There are some of them that actually, I think, hate the idea of America. Most of the progressives, they fundamentally hate capitalism. They are not proud of our founding. They are not proud of our documents and our freedom and things like that. I don't think that's Schumer. I really don't even think that's Hakeem, right? I just have strong political disagreements with him. But their day is done in the Democrat Party. Listen to this word salad here as Hakeem tries to explain whether the shutdown was worth it.
Was the shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people. First of all, Donald Trump and Republicans are the ones who shut the government down. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And the American people know it. And that's been the case for 7 consecutive weeks.
But at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want. So was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
All right, well, the fight lives on, but I think it's not exactly the fight that you think. You think you're going to be fighting Trump now, but I hate to tell you, dude, you're going to be fighting the radicals of your own party. Who is one of those radicals? Well, she is 164th, 248th Native American. That is Pocahontas, Liz Warren. Here she is on November 7th explaining that Trump wants Americans to eat dirt. Then we'll flash forward to yesterday where Dick Durbin, one of those crazy 8 Democrats who decided to feed the hungry people, just watch.
The message to 42 million Americans from Donald Trump: eat dirt.
Many of my friends are unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely to protest the policies of the Trump administration. I share their opinions of this administration, but cannot accept a strategy which wages political battle at the expense of my neighbor's paycheck or the food for his children.
Listen, I don't have particular feelings towards Dick Durbin one way or another. Again, he's probably just like a neither here nor there Democrat who's mostly wrong on stuff. But again, I don't think he hates America. But he's right about that. I don't know why he had to read a statement instead of just being able to say it. It's like, Elizabeth, if you want them to eat dirt, what you were concerned about there is the people that are on SNAP. And again, we should figure out how many people are on SNAP and why are they on SNAP? And if you keep telling us it's 40 million people on SNAP, why is it that 40 million people need government assistance to eat? There's also a zillion videos out right now. There's a huge TikTok account that just started, I guess, or it started over the last couple of weeks, that's showing people on SNAP going into the store and the type of crap that they are buying. And it's all like the worst kind of foods, and they throw it into the bin and they're so proud of it. And then those are the same people who end up overweight and more of a drain on the healthcare system, which addresses what I talked about before. If we're all in it, if it's universal healthcare, and then we're paying certain people to eat all of the wrong foods, maybe there is a problem there, and maybe SNAP benefits should only go towards Whole Foods or something else, but I know they'll never have that conversation. But Elizabeth, if you really cared, Elizabeth, I got one for you. I posed this question on Twitter yesterday. I got some funny answers on this. But do you think Bernie Sanders bought one person a hamburger during the government shutdown? He was so concerned about SNAP. You think AOC went anywhere and bought some eggs for anybody? Or do you think Liz or just any of these people, you think any of them did that? Of course they didn't, because progressives don't actually want to be good. They want to pretend they are good while using your money. That's how it works. Here is Angus King, one of the senators who did jump the Schumer boat, explaining to Joe Scarborough that the shutdown didn't work and Trump now came out looking better.
You have to go back to what the strategy was at the beginning of the shutdown. There were two goals, both of which I support. One was standing up to Donald Trump. The other was getting some resolution on the ACA premium tax credit issue. The problem was the shutdown wasn't accomplishing either goals, and there was practically, well, there was zero likelihood that it was going to. In terms of standing up to Donald Trump, the shutdown actually gave him more power, Exhibit A being what he's done with SNAP and SNAP benefits across the country. Oh, by the way, Joe, you're going to love this. Guess who's getting paid during the shutdown? Not the park rangers or air traffic controllers, the ICE agents.
Well, I'm fine with ICE agents being paid. I'm showing you that clip to show you that even the Democrats who jumped ship, they're not that great. Wait, am I correct? Was he one of the ones that jumped ship? Or did I just make that up? I feel like I might have made that up. Did Angus King jump over? I might have literally made that up in the middle of the show. I normally, yeah. What's that? Did Angus King vote to end the shutdown? Was he one of the people that I read? This is a lot. We're doing a full-on. No, he was not. Was he? He did. Oh, he did. Thought I completely made that up. He's an independent, and apparently he did. Okay, very good. Here is the most racist woman on television, although in a weird way she's not talking about racism right now. Sunny Hostin over at The View explained that Republicans want to cut SNAP benefits, which means they want to starve people, and the Democrats caved. Again, Sunny, did you feed anyone during this? I don't know how much, can we find out how much Sunny makes a year? Did you donate $100 into buying a gift basket for a poor family? And of course, what's it really about for her? Schumer, he's not radical enough, and he is done.
Let's be clear. The Republicans run the House. The Republicans run the Senate. The Republicans run the White House. The Republicans run the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned. This was a choice by Republicans to cut SNAP benefits. This was a choice by Republicans to cut ACA subsidies. This was a choice by the Republicans to gut the federal government and federal employment. Democrats had nothing to do with it. I want an opposition party. I think the Democrats caved. I think the Democrats let down the American people. And like you, Whoopi, I have absolutely no faith that the Republican Party will come to the negotiating table in good faith. You know, you do something like this, shame on you the first time. You do it twice, 3 times, 4 times, shame on me. Shame on the Democrats for even believing that the Republicans will, even vote on it. I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over. If he cannot keep his caucus together, he needs to go. He needs to be.
They are all so angry. This is why you don't make politics the center of your universe, and you better believe in something else besides what's going on right now. Like, so freaking angry. But again, Sonny, what I would say to you is for 40 days, you guys complained that people were starving and SNAP benefits weren't being paid and everything else. So then 8 Democrats decided to open the government so that people wouldn't starve again. Wouldn't you be at least happy about that temporarily? Like say, okay, hey, the government is running again. Those people are not starving anymore. I mean, unless what really is going on here is it's all bullshit. It's all lies. Everything they do is based in fear and hysteria and everything else. But even putting that aside, I would welcome you the same question to Sunny Hostin. We're told it looks like about $2 million a year over there. I think her husband is worth $1 gajillion too. So you have plenty of money. I don't begrudge you any of that. But how about you do something for the people that are hungry? Like, could you do that yourself, at least temporarily? Like, you don't have to do it all the time, but when you're so concerned that the government's not feeding all of these people, could you maybe do a little of that? I am being told by Joseph right now that her husband is worth a cool $450 million, according to Yahoo. So I assume that means he could buy like a couple Happy Meals or something for these people. Alas, I'm going to guess she did jack shit. Here is Bernie Sanders, who is on, you might argue he's on the losing side of this, right? Because the progressives wanted to keep starving people and keep the government closed. But in reality, he's on the winning side because this is going to break apart the Democrat Party, and that's what he's long wanted as a socialist. So here he is going after Chuck Schumer, a man who, again, voted no on the freaking thing in the first place. But sorry, Chuck, you ain't saving face.
Look, what you got right now, Chuck Schumer is part of the establishment. And I'm sorry to say that many people in the Democratic caucus are part of it. I would say we have 8 or 9 out of 47 people who I would consider to be progressives. So you can argue, and I can make the case that Chuck Schumer has done a lot of bad things. But I think getting rid of him, who's going to replace him? Who is going to replace him? The issue right now is doing primaries, getting people involved in the political process who are going to create a government and an economy that works for everybody, who have the guts to take on the oligarchs. So I think we need to take on the Democratic establishment all over this country.
So you get it, guys. That's what this really is about. Chuck thought that he could just kind of feed them a little something. I'll vote no. You guys vote yes. We'll keep it on the DL. It's exactly what John Kennedy predicted, right? And he thought that might keep the wolves at bay. He thought that might keep the barbarians at the gate. But now the barbarians are in. And you are in a lot of trouble, man. But if Bernie is right about that they've got about, what did he say about, they've got about 8 of the like hardcore radical progressives in there and the rest of them aren't, and they're going to primary all of them. If he's right, then how about the majority of you Democrats? Again, who I don't agree with on most political points at this juncture. How about you guys get some balls and start pushing them out of the party instead of just letting them push you out of the party and going full communist? How about you guys get some balls? That would be my recommendation to you, although I doubt you're tuning into the Rubin Report to get my political procrastinations. Let's talk about Morgan & Morgan for a minute, and then we will talk about the new presumptive leader of the Democrat, and he is a cold-blooded lizard himself. I'm not talking about the iguanas falling out of the tree, although he is at least partially related to them. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury could actually be worth millions, and most people have no idea. Insurance companies love to lowball claims, offering way less than what you deserve. That's why there's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across 50 states. They've been fighting for people for more than 30 years, and they don't settle for lowball offers. Just recently, they won $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all way above what insurance companies offered. And the best part, it's completely free unless you win. No upfront costs, no hidden fees. It takes only a couple minutes to see if you have a case. Did you know you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just one click? It's super easy. Just go to forthepeople.com/Rubin or click the link in the description and pin comment. Okay, so a little continuation of where we left off there. Here is Bernie waving his arm. He's very Bernie Sanders in this clip. I warn you in advance. And he's telling everybody they want more morons and bonies.
So what we have got to do is go above and beyond what happened yesterday, that terrible, terrible vote, and understand that, yes, you have parts of the Democratic establishment who are way, way out of touch with where the American people are or where we have got to go. And our job is to build a political movement. We are doing it with the 3 candidates for the Senate. I expect more to come with many candidates in the House, candidates all over this country running for local office. We're going to build that movement, grassroots movement, to do what Mamdani did in New York City, all over this country.
Well, there it is. That's what we're going to do. We're going to primary all of the moderate people. I'm not a Democrat. I caucus with the Democrats. The Democrats actually should have kicked me out a long time ago because I was here only to destroy the country. By the way, I've never passed a serious piece of legislation. I've been in the government for 40 plus years. Yes, I'm a millionaire with 3 houses, and I used to rail against millionaires all the time. But now I'm a millionaire, so I rail against the billionaires. You see how it goes? But I'm telling you what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the thing that I said, which is primary all the people who love America, who like capitalism and stuff. Ugh, God. We put this little image together because the Democrats are really going to have to figure out what to do, and I think we can illustrate it quite effectively here. So 3 points for a great Democrat leader. You're going to have to toe the DNC line. Now, the DNC line is a little hard to figure out what it is, because is it anything of the remaining moderate? Probably not. It's probably someone that just wants to govern as a giant, pandering, big government, flanky, floozy, who's destroyed virtually everything. And there we have a picture of smiling Gavin Newsom. So that seems like it makes sense. You have to be presidential. Well, I will give him credit, using the aborted babies that he puts in the grinder and then uses them as hair gel. He does look presidential. And can you put the image back for just a second? Pushes radical policies with a smile. I mean, that is Gavin Newsom more than anything else. So now let's dive into where Gavin Newsom is at with things. He went on CNN and talked to Jake Tapper, and Tapper asked him if Prop 50, where he rezoned California so that it will become even more of a Democrat supermajority, if that really is about him potentially running for president.
Prop 50, whether that was part of a longer term campaign for you, because obviously you have acknowledged you're thinking about running for president, possibly in 2028. You haven't made any decisions. You're focused on the midterms. I know everything you're about to say. But whether or not the decision was influenced by that at all, what about the response to the decision? Has that changed your calculus at all? Because it does seem like Democrats see fight in you, and a lot of them seem to be, at least the ones we just saw upstairs in Texas, like the fight. I mean, Congressman Al Green introduced you as a future president of the United States.
It's very generous words. Look, with humility, let me say two things. I disagree marginally with the premise of your question. This is the Election Rigging Response Act. This was not a fight we chose. This is a fight we felt was important to fight. Proposition 50 was never on the docket. It was not part of the agenda. For me, though, it goes back further. It goes back to the federalization of the National Guard.
God, he is, just horrible with this guy. He has a massive, massive, ridiculous supermajority in that state. He has caused businesses and people to flee. Nobody is like, I'm going to move to California to start my dreams. Like some people, I guess, still move there because the weather is still okay if your house isn't burning down because he can't manage forest fires or whatever. But we know I don't even have to bother getting into that and all the U-Hauls that leave and everything else, right? We know all of that stuff. But him implying that if he did Prop 50 because he's trying to save America, right, guys? It was Texas. I'm not even defending redistricting at all. I'm not defending gerrymandering. I'm not defending anything that Texas did or didn't do or anything else. But his basic position is, I will save democracy by destroying it. The ends justify the means. And do you think he is really going to save democracy? Just listen to the hysteria. This is all the hint you need to know that he is going to run for president.
It's not about the rule of law anymore. It's the rule of Don. He's picking and choosing, deciding which court decisions he agrees with. He's quite literally running an extortion racket. And not just with universities like UCLA and others in California, but he's doing it with law firms. He's doing it with media organizations. He's doing it with some of the most well-heeled and powerful corporate leaders. You're seeing state capitalism, not just crony capitalism. There's the one thing everything has in common, the tariffs. The tariffs for him are about leverage and about the game that he's advancing, ultimately that inures to his personal advantage and his family's advantage as well. It's all happening in plain sight. And so for me, I have more clarity as it relates to this moment. Prop 50 was part of that. The outcome was meaningful. The outcomes all across the country, I think, just give us more confidence as we move into the future.
I always like to give these guys credit, or give these guys, not credit. I try to give credit where credit is due. I try to give these guys a little advice. And here's Jake, where I would give you a little advice here is when he's just babbling, What is he talking about? Yes, the tariffs were designed so that Donald Trump's family could get richer. We know we have had these completely out of whack trade deals. Almost everyone acknowledges that. Even Democrats acknowledge it. They don't like tariffs now because he likes tariffs as a way of evening the playing field. And you can have your own internal debate on whether you think tariffs are good and whether they're just leverage or whatever. You can have those conversations. But yes, Donald Trump became president again on the idea of we're going to stop having America screwed. We are going to put America first. But really what he was doing was trying to enrich his family. It's just profoundly absurd, but not as profoundly absurd as when he says he's not running for president.
So are you trying to bring people to the table so you can run for president?
No, God, seems the most miserable job in the world. I think the
Literally,
current
you will
president-elect
never
understands
consider
that.
running for president.
No, I have zero, and don't even talk about it.
Did I hear you say you don't want to be president ever?
No, who wants that? With all due respect, ex-president sounds like a great job. No,
well, there's only one way to get there. You know that.
No, I'm looking in the. Here's a tape. You'll have this tape. No.
You're promising not to run for president.
No,
was that you're promising?
Yes, but let me give you a proof point.
That's great.
Bless you.
I don't even need the proof point.
You got the proof. That was it. You just wanted that quote. You just want this tape.
You
and that
promised
quote.
not
You
to
made
run.
a promise. You broke your.
We're not even newsbreakers.
Are you running? Would you ever?
Let me answer your question. No, and then no, and then no, and then no. Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
Man, you know those clips that we show you from like Donahue and Oprah Winfrey in the 80s when they're asking, I mean, literally Oprah Winfrey, will you run for president? And now she has total Trump derangement syndrome. And they ask him, will you run for president? And Trump is always like, well, I'd prefer not to, but we are throwing our country away. And he talks about the trade deals and he talks about the borders, all of the stuff. I mean, no one has been more consistent over the last 4 or 5 decades in American public life than Donald Trump, right? But when they ask him, his response always is, I don't want to do it. I'm doing other things. I'm building businesses. I'm building hotels. We're changing, cityscapes and all of these things. Like, that's what I'm doing. But I want somebody to do it. And they basically forced him into it because he realized, like Homer Simpson, I'm a guy like me, right? Newsom is the complete reverse of that. He's telling you, I'm not going to do it, when you know damn well he is going to do it. And I would say the most dangerous part of Newsom, in a weird way, is Newsom a yes, he is a psychopath. But is he does he fundamentally hate the United States of America? No, the guy is the grandson of Paul Getty, and he grew up rich, and he's got the whiner, and he's got the good life and all of the stuff. It's afforded him so much, his fake teeth and slick hair, like it's done all that for him. So does he fundamentally hate America the way that Bernie and the progressives hate America? I don't think so. But someone who stands for nothing, he has no principle other than attaining power. In a weird way, he's far more dangerous than if you just threw out some ridiculous ideologue Bernie type out there. Here he is over the last couple of days. He's been in Brazil explaining that the Palisades fire, where there was no water in the freaking reservoir, so that when the fire department showed up, they literally couldn't get water to stop the houses from burning down. Although the guy, we'll leave that aside for a second. Here he is explaining that despite that it was really about climate change. That's why it all burned down.
Home values will start to decline. You're seeing it across the spectrum right now, in my state included, which is one of the most blessed and cursed states as it relates to climate. We're on the tip of the spear of climate change, simultaneous droughts and simultaneous floods. The hots are getting a lot hotter, the dries drier. You saw one of the most devastating wildfires in American history in the middle of winter in Los Angeles in January. 100-mile-an-hour winds attached to fire. And as we rebuild, the number one concern people have is, how do I get my home insured? And how do you get a developer to develop a home that can't get a mortgage, which requires home insurance? So from across the spectrum, from financial risk to the issue of cost of living, which is universal, to global competitiveness, this is a no-brainer. As I say, what Trump is doing is unprecedented in American history.
As they say, what Trump is doing is unprecedented. Yes, the fire and the building codes and the lack of water, somehow that has something to do with Trump, or we should maintain giant international agreements like the Paris Accords that there's no mechanism that forces anyone to do anything except the United States just dumps money into like everything. I should be clear, he is not Paul Getty's, I was just babbling off the top of my head. He's not the grandson of Paul Getty, the Getty Museum, which almost burned down in several of the fires. His father was Paul Getty's attorney, and he delivered the ransom money to the kidnappers of Paul Getty's grandchild, which that whole story is a whole other thing, which is quite interesting, but not for right now. But here he is a little more from the evil lizard man explaining that Elon The great capitalist Elon Musk, who's building tunnels underneath LA, who's trying to send rockets out there, who's got the Starlink up there, who freed us with X Twitter, blah, blah, blah. That it's all because Elon's success, it's all because of California's regulatory environment.
We've extended out now for decades this commitment to sustainability and stability as it relates to the investment posture. There's a reason Tesla was created in California. 3.2 billion reasons why they were supported. There'd be no Elon Musk as we know him today, forgive us, had not been, I say that with love in my heart, $1 trillion will do that. But proud of that, proud of his innovation, proud of that leadership because of California's regulatory environment, because of the Air Resources Board, because of that regulatory posture that we are now building on and building off of, and now extending it substantively to 2045.
Gavin, some of that would be correct if we lived in bizarro land. It's the regulatory situation in California and the high taxes that has caused Elon Musk to move all his companies out of California. You're talking about 2 decades ago when people moved to California because there was still the promise of freedom before taxation went completely bananas and before the regulations all went crazy. If that's what you mean, I guess you're saying something true, but people are leaving because of you. Like, that is the fundamental truth. Why are they moving to Texas? Why are they moving to Florida? It's not because of our regulatory environments here. It's because of our deregulatory environments here. We have less regulation. We make it easier for companies to build. We have less corporate tax so that they can invest more, et cetera, et cetera. This is a bit of a non sequitur, but back in 2007, Gavin Newsom banged his best friend's wife, who his best friend was his chief of staff. He banged his wife, and I just thought it would just be kind of fun to show, you know?
Everything you've heard and read is true. And I am deeply sorry about that. I've hurt someone I care deeply about, Alex Turk, his friends and family. And that is something that I have to live with and something that I am deeply sorry for. I am also sorry that I've let the people of San Francisco down. They expect a lot of their mayor, and my personal lapse of judgment aside, I am committed to restoring their trust and confidence, and will work very hard in the upcoming months to make sure that the business of running the city is framed appropriately.
That one was really just for me, you know what I mean? But think about what a scumbag. Like, it's one thing to cheat, right? It's one thing to cheat when you're married, but to bang your best friend's wife. Like, you guys are pretty good friends, and you're not even married, but if he banged your girlfriend, would you still be friends? He would not show, oh, wow, Connor, dropping the hammer. You steer clear. Let's talk about Chef IQ for a second, and then we'll go to whatever the Democrats have left. Cooking Thanksgiving dinner is high stakes. It feels like one dried out turkey can ruin the whole day. That's why I love Chef IQ Sense. This wireless cooking thermometer takes all the guesswork out of holiday cooking. The USDA says turkey needs to reach 165 degrees to be safe. Your eyes can deceive you, but Chef IQ Sense makes sure that you hit that perfect temperature every time. It couldn't be easier. Just insert the sensor, tell the app what you're cooking, then sit back and relax. Chef IQ Sense tells you when to flip, when to take it off the heat, and even how long to let it rest. Basically, it's like having a personal chef watching the stove so you can actually hang out with your guests. No more oven peaking, no more dried out turkey, just perfectly cooked meals every single time. And it's not just for turkey, it works for steaks, chicken, fish, whatever you're making. And right now you can get 30% off site-wide with code Rubin at chefiq.com. That's chefiq.com, promo code Rubin. Connor just choked out Joseph. That was a total joke, man. I have no evidence to think that, and you're not even married yet. Joe Biden was the president before this. He obviously was not in charge of anything. There was an auto pen doing a lot of it. He got a soft coup, blah, 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 blah. But only a year and a half ago, he was running for president, and they were all pretending that it was going to be possible that he would not only be president right now, but for the next 3 years. Think how absolutely insane it is. He showed up yesterday at a restaurant. And tell me if this man you think could have been president right now.
It's quiet.
I miss you.
I'm not even doing that to be gratuitous. It's just like, this is what, when you look at what the Democrats now have, it's partially because they propped that up. They were not honest about everything. They lied about everything. And it wasn't just that he, by the way, it's not even making fun of anyone's age or anyone's conditions. And now he has cancer and everything else. It's not about making fun of any of those things. It's about making fun of the theater around all of it, right? Because it was that guy, and then it was a lady who he literally, Biden himself, only brought on board because she was black and female, and apparently because she was a 3D chess player.
I was aware of my opponent's strategy, and I wasn't about to fall prey or fall into those traps. And part of his strategy and those around him was to try and take me off our game and message. And I wasn't about to be distracted by those flames that he was trying to throw to get me away from my highest priority, which was talking to people about the economy and their well-being in terms of their financial well-being. And so I understood the game that was being played. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to get played. And
is she the president? Because I'm pretty sure she's laughing at the wrong point there. So again, it's just more nothingness with her, which I just put out there to illustrate. They just don't know what they are going to do right now. But a party that doesn't know what it's going to do, whether it's dementia guy or her or Auto Pen or Timu Obama or Schumer is on the way out. What this is rife for, and this is the warning here, what this is rife for is for the radicals to take over, which is exactly what Bernie says his plan is. So now let's jump back to Timu Obama. Here he is on with Kirsten Welker on MSNBC, and she's wondering if Mamdani, if moron Zamboni can deliver on his promises. And you can see because he doesn't really believe in him. He doesn't really want it to happen, but he does not know what to do.
So frozen rent, free buses, universal child care. Do you believe that he can deliver on those promises very quickly, Leader Jeffries?
Well, he's going to have to work with the Rent Guidelines Board and probably more importantly with the governor of the state of New York and the state legislature in order to enact those proposals. But it's all centered around the notion of making New York City more affordable, which is, of course, what we have to do throughout America. In a country that's far too expensive. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It's unacceptable that far too many people are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, so you can see what he's saying. He doesn't want to get on board all the Mamdani stuff, but then, then he gives us these just sort of generic platitudes about expenses. Okay, so then how about you push for deregulation? How about you push for tax cuts? How about you acknowledge that it was your party that printed all the money and was more for lockdowns, which we're still in the hangover of, and everything else, but you're not going to do that. Interestingly, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who's quite horrific in her own right, who endorsed Mamdani, and then he refused to endorse her, which is just perfect for these people. She's now saying she's, quote, not ready to move forward with free buses. So I don't know how all the inner workings of New York works, whether free buses, I guess some of the funding, comes from the state, not all of it comes from the city. But okay, that might be a little bit of a Democrat that is going to stand up to some of this lunacy, because again, guys, it doesn't take a wizard or a mathematician to know that nothing is free. Yesterday, Zohran, or moron Zamboni, introduced his new chief of staff. Her name is Elle Bisgard Church. She is a socialist from Cali, and she has no real-world experience, but here she is for just a moment.
And I would now like to introduce my chief of staff, Elle Bisgard Church.
All right, great lady, seems nice. That's just fine. We have a little info on Mrs. Church. Mamdani's chief of staff's Elle Bisgard Church, a California transplant with zero executive experience, zero budget management, and zero accountability for anything beyond DSA-approved slogans. Her resume: activist radio show, academic theory, and organizing arrest performative stunts, not running a city agency. And this is from CityDex NYC, which is a great follow on X. And then he goes into the rest of the cabinet, which is just an absolute disaster. And now let's get over to I can't call him moron every time. So let's get over to Zohran or Zohran or whatever you want to call him. Here he is saying, and I'm fairly certain this is illegal, but nothing matters anymore. Here he is explaining that the NYPD will not work with ICE because he wants New York City to remain a sanctuary city.
What I will continue to do is be someone who will stand up for New Yorkers when Donald Trump is seeking to fulfill his promise to create the single largest deportation force in American history. And my NYPD will continue to not be of assistance to ICE whenever they are trying to terrorize New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
Okay, ICE isn't trying to terrorize anyone. ICE is going after illegals who are not here legally. It's in the word legal and illegal. It's all there, right? And they're removing those people from the United States who should not be here. If you live in New York City, you really should leave if you're decent. I know it's not fun. I would also recommend watching Fiddler on the Roof again and watch at the end of Fiddler on the Roof. When it's time to go, it's time to go, and you can find greener pastures. That's the story of the Hebrews. They don't like the Hebrews very much, obviously. But sometimes when it's time to go, it's time to go, because you don't want to be there when the Cossacks or the Marxists or the et ceteras come. But it's not just moron Zamboni that's terrible. They've also got Lady Eyelashes, Jasmine Crockett, and well, to Bernie's point, they want some more crazy people to run. Well, she's considering running for Senate in Texas.
So I got to ask you, because your name has been floated all over Washington, D.C., and I'm sure all over Texas as a potential U.S. Senate candidate. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I am considering it, is what I can tell you. I think that we're living in unprecedented times, and I think an unprecedented candidacy is what we need to do in Texas if we're going to do something different. And so I think when you're talking about how expensive these races are, starting with someone who is known and has a brand that doesn't take from anybody, I think being a fighter for the people is what people are looking for.
That is where we are at in politics, guys. Why is she going to run? Because she's known and she has a brand. Does she have any of the right ideas? Has she accomplished anything in her life? Much like Zamboni, has he ever done anything other than run and win? Can he accomplish anything? But he's got a brand, and it's a slick brand, and she's got a, I'm telling you guys, I'm going to be for Florida secession. Like, there's just no way around it at this point. But if you want to see just the level of patheticness around the Democrats, I'm always looking for I always keep saying I'm looking for the lefties online, like who are the pundits online, not just the generic CNN people. There's this woman, Stephanie Miller. She's been a lefty progressive radio host for decades. I think I did her show way back when I was a lefty, probably over 10 years ago. This picture came out of her. She's kissing Jasmine Crockett's feet. But I'm told we're in a cult. We're the ones in a cult. Here's Trump on Crockett.
This Crockett, this is a very low IQ person. And I look at somebody that comes from Somalia where they don't have anything. They don't have police, they don't have military, they don't have anything. All they have is crime. And she comes in and tells us how to run our country. The Constitution says this, the Constitution, the whole thing is crazy.
All right, so it was a little bit of a strange segue that he did there. He's talking about Crockett, and then obviously he's moving on to Ilhan, but it shows just the radicalness of the party. So I didn't want to end the show on that. I wanted to end on, okay, so what are we going to do here, right? Yesterday I talked quite a bit in the middle of the show about that there's been some craziness on the right, and I think good people, I think most Americans are good. I think it's at least 80% of us and we get lost in the battles, and I include myself in that. It's all of that, right? But most of us are good and decent. Most of us want to live with people who are a little bit different, and we can disagree on the issues and all of that stuff. So that's why, actually, keeping MAGA together is so important. So I want to show you this video. This is Cheryl Hines, who, of course, you know as Cheryl David from Curb Your Enthusiasm, but she's been an actress in Hollywood for years. She's also happens to be married to RFK. So these are hardcore. These were people that were hardcore Democrats, right? She comes from Democrat Hollywood. Bobby Kennedy, his name's freaking Kennedy, hardcore Democrats. Well, she's on a book tour right now. I think we're going to have her on the show in a week or two. And she went on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. And here they are coming to agreement about a man that they both hated probably 2 years ago, Donald Trump.
Again, one good thing about Trump, he really, really does not like war.
Which I love that about him.
I kind of do, because I don't want war either, and most of them are unnecessary.
Agreed.
I mean, he took a long time when I had that dinner with him talking about the pictures he sees coming from Ukraine, the stuff that doesn't get out on the news. It's like raw footage of bodies in the field.
Yes.
And you could tell it really moved him. He's like, I do not want to see this, and I'm the kind of guy who can fix this at least, you know, he's never not going to be Trump. So of course he's like, I solved 9 wars. And, you know, okay, even if it's half that, it's still good that we're
Right,
solving
it's-
them and not starting them.
That's the thing that I find that I really like about President Trump when he talks about wars and
How
talks about
dare you.
Ukraine. And he talks about Ukraine and Russia, and he will say they're losing people on both sides.
So I'm not just playing that clip because it's given Copal a nice little shout out. That is a bottle of Copal right there. I'm playing it because, look, these are two people who are not really in Trump's camp, right? If Trump was running again, he's always threatening to run again. I still don't know if Bill would vote for him, right? But what Bill's saying is he does not like war. He actually is affected by those images. We are wrapping this stuff up. And then he's saying, he's still jokester and ego and whatever. And there you have Cheryl, who I have no doubt, I've heard her talk about it actually, and I will ask her about it, who has lost friends over her husband joining scary Donald Trump as he now tries to solve autism and as he tries to get, dyes out of our children's cereal and everything else. Here they are a little bit more on the human side of Trump, which you don't get to see that often.
Somebody was just asking me about when I met him, what surprised me the most. And I said, I was surprised that he really likes to listen to people. He's very curious and what
They
you have to
hated
say.
when I said that. Again, because I'm just telling you what happened. What, should I lie?
I guess so. I guess
Right.
that's
He
what they
kicked
want.
me in the balls
Yeah.
under the table. And then
Like I knew he would.
He threw the spaghetti against the wall when I raised the subject of tariffs. No. No. Mentioned it again, they hated me for it, that as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean? And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track, you know?
They're just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yes, or they're just on a different level. I mean, these are show people too. I've had that. But I didn't get that with him at all.
No.
I got a guy who looked in my eyes, was listening to what I said, waited until I finished.
Again, this is someone that you might have said 5 years ago had Trump derangement syndrome, and Cheryl, who would have never said anything positive about Donald Trump. So what does that tell you? And by the way, that tracks, he said the word tracks, that tracks exactly with my experience when I've now met him a few times, but the first time, particularly when I met the president, and he was interesting and he made eye contact and he listened and he asked questions and all of those things. And that does tell you that there is something fundamentally different between him and some of these hysterical people that we've shown you on the show today. But I want to show you one more clip from that, if you can bear with me for one more second. One more clip from that sit down, because I think this gets to the heart of what has been so confusing to so many people for so long. The entire cultural apparatus for decades now has told us that Democrats are good guys and they're kind of nice and they like diversity and they're decent and Republicans like war and money and they're mean and cold and everything else. Well, here's two, I would say, former Democrats on that.
The Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've become.
All right, so now I want to show you, and you've seen this clip before, but this is a great illustration of why everyone thinks politics is about policy or something. You have to drug people over the head with charts and explanations and everything else, but it actually is quite human, because what Bill is saying right there is that over time he realized that these Republicans weren't that bad, and Cheryl's saying she was kind of surprised that the Republicans were welcoming to Bobby. And you may remember a couple of years ago when I had Bobby on the first time, and we had never met in person before. It was the second we went live on camera was the first time we met. And by the end of the interview, even though we disagreed on many things, many different things, including affirmative action and much more, and we debated it, I said to him, I don't know if you'll be a Republican by the end of this thing, but I know you won't be a Democrat. And you can see his eyes light up. Well, now I want to throw back to October of 22, when I sat in that very chair, although they were organized a little bit differently. The Cheryl was in right there. And I told Bill exactly that about how kind Republicans, really MAGA, can be.
Sounds like they were Trump loving, not America loving.
There were American flags everywhere. There were gays for Trump, Latinos for Trump.
Really?
Yes, everywhere. And nobody cared. And by the way, they didn't burn down Rodeo Drive like Black Lives Matter and anything. It was, and then I started going back. I went a few times and I did live streams from there. And I'm telling you, you could have walked in that audience and people would have, yes, with a certain amount of people have been like, fuck Bill Maher. And but you know what? A lot of people would have been there like, you know what? Bill Maher's here. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Which, think how different that would be than if you went to an AOC rally where you would be hated beyond imagination.
You're right.
I don't mean that as
no, it's like, right.
It's just true. It's just
true.
true.
They're more, the left are more purists.
So look, this is where we're at right now. There's a lot of political fights to happen again. There's weird stuff happening on the right, which I'm going to do my best to try to quell some of the lunacy. But overall, I think most of us fall into what we've just shown you of these last couple clips. It doesn't really matter what your differences with Bill Maher or Cheryl Hines are or anything else. Like, these are people who love America, right? It's against the progressive lunacy and whatever sort of fringe lunacy might be appearing on the right. That's the bulk of Americans. And we just need better leaders or better communicators to keep pushing that, because that is the thing that will save the country right now and well beyond. All right, we are a little behind schedule here because we had that odd technical hiccup, I assume, because it's, my God, it's only 45 degrees in Miami right now. So we're going to do a post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com, and then I'm interviewing Chaz Palminteri, which is a really interesting one. We're going to talk about mafia movies and a whole bunch more, and we're going to save that, I think, for around Thanksgiving for you guys. So I'm psyched for that. So post-game show in a minute. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao. So we are live. This is probably going to be the strangest live stream I've ever done. Blank piece of paper in front of me. A little bit of information that's breaking right now on the prompter. Obviously, you guys know that why we're doing this out of nowhere. Charlie Kirk, my friend, the head of Turning Point USA, radio show host, father, more importantly, husband, was shot at an event at, where was it, guys? Utah Valley University, just about an hour ago. It looks pretty horrific. There's a lot of stuff breaking. I'm not even exactly sure why we're doing this, other than I was in the studio right now because I'm going to New York early in the morning for a 9/11 memorial. So we're not going to be live tomorrow. I'm going to pre-tape some stuff for that. And I obviously have to address this, not just because it's news, but I know Charlie well, and he's been to this house multiple times, and we've broken bread multiple times, and we've done dozens of the exact same type of events that he was just shot at. We've done them together over the years. There was about a year or so where we probably did about 50 of them. The culture wars were very different at the time. The world was very different at the time. So I don't know exactly, I just quickly did something with Russell Brand for our Actual Friends podcast because we were on air as it happened. And, what I said to him was, it's like, I don't want to narrate the end of the world. That doesn't seem that great to me. But something has shifted, I think, in the ether here. And it's not good. And we're going to have to figure out how to get out of this. I'm being told right now that apparently he has been stabilized and he's in the hospital receiving blood. There were two videos, I guess, that were going viral immediately after. There was one from a distance where you see him get shot, but you can't quite see it up close. And then there was an up close one, which I heard a moment ago may have been AI, because there's just an unbelievable amount of blood, and hopefully that one is AI. I know that Charlie is strong. I know that there are literally millions of people around the world that are praying for him right now. I don't know that there's anything else that we can do besides that. I have no doubt, I already started to see it, some of the people online that were either celebrating or MSNBC sort of excusing it. He's a flamethrower and he says controversial things. It's like, yeah, if we're at the point in society, in American culture, that we can't say controversial things without the threat of being killed, or not just the threat, without actually being killed, well, then it's over, right? Like, then the experiment, as we're about to roll into our 250th year, is over. So it does not matter, obviously, if you hate every single thing that Charlie Kirk stands for. You can't go out and kill him. There's plenty of people that I criticize on this show every day that I find their ideas absolutely abhorrent, that they are trying to rehash the time-tested failures of societies that are long gone, and they want to import them here. You can't kill them. This feels like, in some sense, like the culmination of everything that's been going on for at least a decade. It's been going on way longer than that, but a decade in the sort of modern sense of where the internet's out. That a decade ago, there were some of us that were talking about safe spaces and trigger warnings, and why this stuff was going to damage a young generation of people who would be afraid of everything. And then we had people that were telling you the world was going to end in 12 years, 6 years ago, and telling you the country's systemically racist, and all of the stuff that you're just hit with on the phone all the time. And young people were just born into it and handed it. It appears, if it's correct, that the guy who did the shooting doesn't seem like a young man. It appears like it's an older guy. If that picture that I saw was correct, it doesn't even matter. I don't even feel like doing the autopsy on all of that yet. But what I can tell you about Charlie, maybe that's a better way to do it. What I can tell you about Charlie is that, Charlie and I met when, I was kind of leaving the left, right? And then our worlds started colliding. Charlie was this conservative influencer with Turning Point USA, and I was kind of leaving the left. And then suddenly we were at events together. We would say hi a couple of times. We definitely had big political differences, because I was still a lefty in a lot of senses, and he was a conservative. But there was an immediate mutual respect there, and we did a lot of events together, and we've debated death penalty. I mean, we've debated serious stuff. We've debated death penalty multiple times on opposite sides. We've debated abortion. We've talked about gay marriage. We've done all of the stuff, and we've done it publicly and we've done it privately. We've sat next to each other at weddings. He had coffee in my house about a year ago, came by for coffee. What I know about Charlie, I'm trying to think of the last time I saw him, was probably, I saw him, I think, about 4 or 5 months ago. We texted a couple weeks ago. I saw him about 4 or 5 months ago, actually, at Mar-a-Lago for a PragerU event. And Charlie, look, he liked being in the fight. He likes being in the fight, I should say. He likes arguing. He likes making the point. He likes pointing out the hypocrisy. He likes doing all that. And sometimes he does it with a little bit of a flamethrower. Not as much as many in the media portray him as. But he likes fighting for America. He likes fighting for what he believes in, his values, and all of those things. And he did it honestly, and that's why I always liked him. No, I'm doing this wrong. That's why I've always liked him. Because we would always put our differences aside at the end, right? And we would go to these events at these colleges, and mostly when we were doing this around 2019, 20, something like that, there would be massive protests outside. There would be people throwing things at us. We'd have police escorts. Like for Charlie, he was doing it a little bit before me, so it was kind of like old hat to him. But I remember one of the first ones that I did with him, and I wasn't used to showing up somewhere. I was a good guy on the left, so I wasn't used to showing up to a college where I was going to be protested and somebody dumped hot coffee on me on one of these things, or we'd have to literally be dragged out back doors because they were pounding on the doors, or venues had to be moved. There's a famous video that I did, I think at University of New Hampshire, that's been seen millions of times. I was supposed to be doing an event there with Charlie and Candace Owens, And the two of them canceled for whatever reason that day. So it was just me there, and like thousands of protesters. They were really there, I think, to protest Charlie, but then, and they probably didn't even know that much about me. I wasn't as radical at the time. But thousands of protesters there, like shouting me down and pulling fire alarms and throwing things and interrupting. And what has this all led to? What has it all led to? I suppose it has led to what we just saw this afternoon, just moments ago. So I'm just praying for, and I think all you can do is pray for a human being right now. It does not matter if someone has completely polar opposite views than you, right? Like I do it every day on the show. I make fun of these people. I try to do it with a little bit of humor, right? Because if I was to just like analyze all of their bad ideas over and over, I'd kind of go crazy. I don't think I would want to do this. So I try to do it with as much like kitsch and over the top and sarcasm and all that stuff as possible. But it was always the danger. It was always the danger if you called everybody Nazis. What would you do if you call that guy Hitler enough? What do you think somebody might do if they actually started to believe that? And that's the dangerous position that we have put ourselves in. We lived through this with Trump, who thankfully lived through his assassination attempt, and we can only pray that Charlie will live through this assassination attempt. But if we don't really start thinking about how we're going to do this better, and I know there's a lot of forces that don't want it to be better. There are forces that are outside of this country that don't want it to be better here. There are forces in this country that don't want it to be better here. I can only speak to those of you who want it to be better. And I actually do think that's most people. But how you reach them, how you really, if most of us are just kind of, all right, let's live and let live, let's try it that way. And let's accept that there's some differences. And that's why we have states' rights. And that's what individual choice is all about. And that's what the pursuit of happiness, that's what the whole thing is all about. Like, that's great if a certain amount of people believe that. And then what do you do when there's this other set of people who have been so broken into believing that you're evil for that and that they want your stuff now, or they won't let you alone? Like, live and let live is great, but it's a mutual exchange, right? There has to be something common. It has to be common enough that enough people will say it and then operate within that. But if you and your people say live and let live, and then there's another force that's out there that's unrelenting in trying to take that away from you, I don't know what you do about that. But I know that Charlie fought for the things that he believed in honestly, imperfectly and honestly. We still have our political differences, and who the hell cares? Who the hell cares? Is there anything else breaking at the moment? I don't know. Being rushed to the hospital. Yeah, there's a video. I don't think we have to bother with any of the videos. You guys can see all the videos. So there's a video of him being shot. There's a video of him being rushed to the hospital. Last I saw, right before we started, a friend who has some insider knowledge said that there was a heartbeat at the hospital. Yeah, I don't know. All right, Phoenix is going to text me something. We got to figure out how to be better at this thing. That's everybody. When I go away in August, you guys know I really try not to think about politics, and I usually don't. Like, weeks could go by where I don't even think about Donald Trump. Like, I just get away from the entire thing. But the thing that I think about sort of in like the blue sky sense, something that just kind of pops in my head randomly throughout the day, will be how can I be better at what I do here, right? Like, how can I actually communicate this stuff in a better way? Because I do want the world to be healed. I do want the world to be better. As I said at the top, I don't want to just narrate the end of the world. I don't want to do this for another 20 years and be like, boy, everything really did get worse and everyone I know got shot. I would prefer that not be the way we do this. I do want it to get better. So I'll have to think about that. I think that's important to think about. Let me just see what was sent me here. Okay, so it sounds like, all right, so I have to jump to Fox now? Is that what we're doing?
Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Look at my text.
Okay. All right, he's in the hospital. It's critical. All right, I don't want to even get into the minutiae right now. I don't know. We weren't exactly sure why we were doing this. It was sort of like, it was going to be a little bit, I suppose, cathartic for me. Maybe it's a little bit cathartic for you. These worlds all get together. I'll tell you something, when I was on tour with Jordan and Peterson in 2018, there was a night, we did, 120 some odd shows or something. And Tammy, Jordan's wife, came for virtually the entire tour until she got sick. But she came for most of the other shows. David joined for a few shows, and there was one night, I think we might have been in Stockholm. I think we were somewhere in one of the Nordic countries. Maybe we were in Finland, I'm not sure. And David and Tammy were sitting in like the 5th row, and it was at the end of the show. It was a Q&A, thousands of people there. We didn't have security at the time. Like, think how different the world is. Jordan has tremendous security now. We didn't have any security at the time. It was me, Jordan, and the tour manager. It's crazy that we did it like that. But Tammy and David were sitting in like the 5th row, and Jordan and I were doing the Q&A on stage, and I asked Jordan a question, and he started doing one of his amazing things with his hands and the whole thing. And he was talking about some biblical imagery, and he was describing something, but he couldn't remember all of the images that he was trying to elaborate on. And suddenly we heard sort of like a crash and a scream in the back, and then there was all this commotion, and we saw someone running to the stage who, as he approached the stage, got tackled, and his phone kind of went flying. This might be on video somewhere. His phone kind of went flying to the stage, and Jordan saw it. And I kind of froze. Like, I didn't know what was happening. I had no idea what was happening with someone coming to attack us or God knows what. I had no idea. And Jordan calmly, in a way that probably only Jordan could do, Jordan calmly, he looked at the phone for a second. And it turned out that the guy was a young guy. And I saw the guy. Once they tackled him, I saw him, and he just looked dazed. Like, he was like a young guy. He didn't look crazy. He just looked like dazed in his eyes. It turns out that the guy actually remembered what the biblical passage that Jordan was talking about, and he had pulled up an image on Google, and then obviously had like a little out-of-body experience. He was not trying to hurt anybody. He literally wanted to help Jordan. But when that happened, Tammy and David were sitting in the 5th row or so, and Tammy said to David that when Jordan and she decided to do this tour, that they accepted like anything could happen, like any horrible thing could happen. And David and I have laughed about this many times over the years, but David said to her, well, Dave and I never discussed that. We never had that discussion. I suspect this is going to change a little bit around safety when it comes to events that a lot of these people are doing, myself included, likely. So the world has changed, and we are now fighting things that are really not good. Look at the story. I don't want to make this political, so I'll do this in 60 seconds. But look at this, the major story in the world right now is about this 23-year-old young girl who got killed in Charlotte. And look at, if you watched our show today or yesterday, look what the main lead was on CNN. I mean, they tried to, for no reason, blame Charlie at the top of Abby Phillips' show. They said, this is fodder for people like Charlie Kirk. They brought his name into a story that had nothing to do with him. And then Van Jones claimed that Charlie was making this about race. You can't shoot them either, right? Even if you don't like their ideas, as stupid, as pathetic and thin and awful as they are. But like, what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here? We got the most precious, freaking beautiful piece of jewelry in our hand, right? We've got the Holy Grail right here. That's what America is. And we're just like, I don't know, maybe we'll just throw it that way and throw it this way and throw it this way and see what happens. So we all got to figure out how to be better here. I pray for Charlie. I know you're praying for Charlie too. As I said, we kind of did this on the fly just because I was in studio. But so tomorrow, I will be in New York for 9/11. I'm going to be at the Cantor Fitzgerald building. They're doing a big fundraiser. Everyone knows what happened to Cantor Fitzgerald on 9/11. 4 floors of the Trade Center lost hundreds of employees. So we're gonna do a little fundraiser over there. And obviously this is not going anywhere. So, all right, let's leave it there and throw in an extra prayer. You got one more prayer in you today? Throw in one more for Charlie. All right, thanks.
But certainly, in the recent 2 or 3 years, we've seen a massive influx of people. We think there are almost as many as 2 million new immigrants, which on a population of 27 million is a significant chunk, which has been a policy of this Labor government, including recently allowing the widows or brides from ISIS to return to Australia, which is a very, very dangerous and controversial thing to be doing, of course.
All right, Senator Alex Antic, a pleasure to meet you. I feel like I already interviewed you. We did a half hour where we should have just had the cameras rolling, but we're going to sit down and repeat a bunch of things that I think we just spoke about. But first, I should mention, so we're here in Melbourne. How was my pronunciation there?
That was good.
That was pretty good.
It was excellent.
Can you say it? Because I'm nervous for my live show tomorrow.
Melbourne is good. Melbourne, but just don't say Sydney.
Definitely don't say Sydney. I should mention you are not Senator of Melbourne.
Correct.
You are Senator of Adelaide. Can you break down? I thought we'd do a little Australia 101 for the people, because even me coming in, it's a big country. We know Crocodile Dundee. We know Bluey. That's kind of the extent.
And spiders, I'm told, as well. Everyone's frightened of Australian spiders, and you should be.
Yeah.
Well, look, and look, this is going to test me as well, because my knowledge of Australian history and politics might not be. But essentially, that's right. Look, I'm a senator. Similar system to the US, but we sit in two chambers of the Parliament, Senate and the lower house, as we call it, the House of Representatives. Senators are elected by their whole state, whereas a little bit like in the US, the lower house is just elected in districts. If you like. We call them electoral districts. Each state has 12 except for our territories. And it's a house of review. We review laws and make it sound quite boring.
No, politics 101. No, we have similar systems. We have similar people also. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about what you think it means to be Australian, because that seems to be a debate in all Western countries right now. So we'll get to that in a sec. But why don't we first talk a little bit about just sort of what do you think the state of the country is at a moment, before we get to the people specifically? What's the state of Australia?
Well, I think this is a very different country than the one I grew up in. I grew up in the 80s and to a certain extent the 90s as well. The world's very different. The West is very different now than it was then, but Australia in particular is. We have, I suppose, you would say we are the land of opportunity in many respects, resources, natural resources, beautiful beaches. And yet, for some reason, there is this cloud hanging over this country at the moment, and I think it's across the board. I think it's all the way through the country. There is a feeling of pessimism a little bit, and that has changed over the years. I think we've seen that more and more over the last 10 years. COVID, of course, has had a long-lasting impact on the country. I think that in many respects, the country hasn't recovered from COVID. A lot of economic problems, a lot of businesses just never reopened after lockdowns, particularly in this state.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting question. And historically, Australians are very laid-back people. As you said, the idea of Steve Irwin and Crocodile Dundee, that is, and to some extent is, but certainly was, what Australians were like when I was growing up.
Yeah.
They still exist, but we are seeing an urbanisation of the population, which has changed that a little bit. And I think people are perhaps a little more reserved with their behaviour.
So how much of that unease that you're talking about is a COVID hangover? Because one of the most shocking things, I lived in Los Angeles during COVID, which was as dystopian as you could get, except for the city we are in right now. I mean, we saw videos out of Melbourne that looked like they were coming out of China.
Yeah.
So how much of what's going on in this country right now is that people kind of had it good, great landmass, as you said, laid back population, beautiful, everyone looks great here, have this weird authoritarian thing happen, and now the years out of that seem to be what's going on.
Well, I guess it depends.
From an outsider, that's kind of the way I'm seeing it.
And Americans saw that, and they saw the images, and we were very conscious of that at the time. And I think it was very important that they did, because to me, it reflected some of the things that we don't have in this country that you do in the United States, things like the First Amendment. And so we went through this period during COVID where things were pretty bleak, pretty tough. And for me, that was a very strong wake-up call. That was 12 months into this job, into my parliamentary career. And for me, it showed the very frail nature of Western democracies, Western liberalism, if you like, because with the swipe of a pen, parliaments all over the country simply handed off huge blocks of power to our public service, to our bureaucrats, who started making decisions for us. So many of the decisions you saw, such as the lockdowns that the city was put into, came at the behest of public servants rather than politicians, which was a very unusual scenario and almost a little unique to Australia in the way in which the country is made up of states in a federation.
Right. So basically the kind of managerial class.
Very much.
You mentioned to me when we sat down a moment ago that you were put in a quarantine for 2 weeks.
I was coming back from seems incredible now, but at the time I was coming back from Parliament. And the rules in my home state there were that you needed to get it's hard to say out loud, but you needed to get a visa almost, like a pass to come home to your own state, which I put in. I gave them all the information and they said, you can't come. And I said, all right, well, I'm coming. And before I knew it, they said, well, you come back, but you have to do 2 weeks in a hotel, not dissimilar to this. Now, that hotel had a big metal fence around it, the middle of the city. It had police downstairs. I wasn't allowed to leave the hotel room, and having tested 6 times negative for COVID, I was put into an area where there was actually COVID. I can remember vividly. So the most, it was a sort of a parody in a sense, but I can remember vividly going. They would serve you meals, and on the first day, I had a knock on the door, boom, like that, and I sort of woke up and went to the door immediately, and then I got a phone call from downstairs. It was constable, police sergeant, something. You got up and got your meal too quickly. The person hadn't cleared the room. Okay, so next time I waited 2 minutes.
God,
and I got a phone call saying you need to go and collect your meal. It's been left out there, and that's not within the rules. So, this was an extraordinarily authoritarian approach to the problem. And I back to the original question. I do think that's left a mark on Australians. I think for many of us, it now feels as though the things that we never thought were possible in the country are possible.
So, okay, so before we get to who is an Australian, what does it mean to be Australian? I have one other question for you first, which is, so you are a member of the Liberal Party here.
Yeah.
And as we discussed earlier, the word liberal from an American perspective has been completely mucked up because now the people who proclaim to be liberals are the least liberal people, actually. So anytime I go to another country and someone says they're a liberal, I go, well, do they mean they're a liberal like for individual rights and laissez-faire economics and logic and reason? Or do they mean liberal like I'm sort of a progressive authoritarian? I think I know your answer to that, but can you explain a little bit what does it mean to be part of the Liberal Party in Australia?
Well, I'm just waiting for someone to agree to being called, authoritarian.
Right,
Somebody else.
right.
I am actually. That'll be a one for the ages.
Yeah.
But, look, no, it is. It's a strange use of term. I mean, I think we would look at it, the Liberal Party in the sort of spirit of Mill, classical liberalism.
Yeah.
And that's the way the party was formed. It was really formed as as a sort of conglomerate of centre-right parties that had a conservative and a libertarian angle bent, if you like, and they came together after the war, and that was the modern Liberal Party. Quite different. We actually wear the colour blue as the logo as well, so it's quite. You would be well understood for being mistaken for coming to Australia, seeing blue and Liberal and thinking you're dealing with basically the centre left.
Right.
But that is not the case. So, no, in Australia, that's what it means. It's interesting, though, in the sense that politics in Australia doesn't quite overlay into the United States, probably the same in Europe as well. Our politics tends to be probably a little more to the centre on both sides, I think. Our far left is probably a little closer to the centre, and the same with the...
So your far left is what party now?
Well, we would say the Australian Greens, who are our furthest left party. I mean, there are others. Of course, there are minor parties that are always on the ballot, as there are in every country. But in terms of parliamentary representation, the Greens they're an environmentalist party that has really drifted into, sort of far left doctrine of, I would say, angles that involve, all sorts of things that aren't related to the environment.
Immigration.
All of that,
yeah.
So they are certainly, and we do have further right parties than the Liberal Party. We've got a party called One Nation, which is a minor party that deals in sort of nationalist issues, if you like. So there's a broad spectrum. I know that's the case in Europe as well. It's not quite as binary as it is in the US, but if you were overlaying, people would disagree with this, but the Liberal Party is probably closest to the Republican Party, I'd say.
Right, which is funny. That's the point. In America, we basically now have a Republican Party that is pretty much filled with all ex-libs, and we have a Democrat Party that's now filled with what I would say are largely kind of crazy people, but we can leave that there. So, okay, so let me ask you, what does it mean now to be Australian? Because even being here just for a day and wandering around, it's a little hard to tell in a sense. The bluey, the bluey sort of Steve Irwin thing maybe is not the perfect encapsulation?
It's a very difficult question to ask because I think it depends where you're going and where you are. In the city, and I mean, if I went back to when I was growing up, I think the demographic in the city was largely the same as in the country areas. That's not the case anymore. My feeling is that really to get a feel for for what is an Australian, you almost need to get out to the country areas, the regional areas where a lot of what we consider to be Australian is still alive and well. People fly the flag out there. You know, if you come to Australia is one of the very few countries that still, I think, finds it acceptable to have 3 different flags on a government building. You know, I notice in the United States, despite even in places like California, where you might see the California flag, you'll still always see the American flag. But here, you will see a myriad of, Australian, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a problem with any of those flags, but there is one flag for the country. In the country, you'll see very much the opposite. You'll just see the Australian flag. Now, these days, the person living the urbanised Australian is quite different, I think. They do tend to lean further to the left, and they are a mix. They're very multicultural and quite different. In the country, I think the Steve Irwin character still exists, and I think they're very real. But overall, the Australian nature is laid back. We are, very outdoors loving people. We're very laid back. People, I think, here are very forgiving as well. The other thing that makes Australians quite unique is they're very apolitical. So, there just isn't the interest in politics. In fact, I was having a conversation on the plane with some young people who had just no grasp of it, and that's fine. But that is a very, we're not quite as engaged in the political process as
right, which in some sense probably led to a lot of what happened during COVID because people were kind of checked out.
I think it did. Yeah, I think it did, and it doesn't take much for that authoritarian nature to creep out unless, I think Ronald Reagan said freedom's only a generation away from being lost, or words to that effect. So, we do have that constraint here in Australia. And I think people, it would be good to see people more conscious of their freedoms and what's being lost at the moment. I don't think it's being lost across the entire spectrum of the Australian nation at the moment.
So speaking of that, where is Australia as it pertains to immigration right now? Because you guys are a freaking giant landmass that it is its own continent. Most people don't realize that. You have you're an island. You're a very large island. You have no borders with anyone else. It seems like this place should be a fortress, which in some sense it was kind of set up to be.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like there's also a lot of problems on the immigration.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been historically, it's quite interesting, backlog of how the Australia came to be where it is. It's probably too long for today's conversation, but essentially we were settled by the English and the Irish and the Scottish out of Europe. And that continued really largely until around about the 60s or 70s when we started seeing, our post-war too, of course, before we started seeing influxes from Europe. There was, in fact, a white Australia policy for a long period of time. And that all changed in the latter half of the 20th century when we started seeing more immigration from Asia, and now in recent times from the Middle East and so on. But you're quite right. I mean, we had a population when I was growing up of around about just under 20 million. It's about 28 or thereabouts now, depending on where you look.
In a country that's the size of the United States,
it's pretty close.
350 million.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Now, the difference with Australia is most of our arable land is on the coasts.
Right.
So there's a lot of landmass in the middle where there's minerals and a bit of farming, but not a huge amount else, although they'd probably scream at me for that, but that is the fact. So most of it, most of the population is centred in those urban areas. So it's sort of a little bit misleading in the sense that we do have a large mass. The thing we do have is resources. We have plenty of water up north. We've got minerals everywhere. We've got some of the largest stockpiles of uranium and coal and iron and gas. We just don't use them because we are under the thumb of this green ideology, which is telling us to sort of self-harm by not using it and not burning it and so forth. But certainly, in the recent 2 or 3 years, we've seen a massive influx of people. We think there are almost as many as 2 million new immigrants, which on a population of 27 million is a significant chunk, which has been a policy of this Labor government, including recently allowing the widows or brides from ISIS to return to Australia, which is a very, very dangerous and controversial thing to be doing, of course. And so the dynamics change.
What is their argument in a place that has this many resources, that is this big? What is the argument? So we're going to bring in 10% of the population in 2 years, or
well, the argument that would be used is that COVID there was almost a moratorium on immigration, and we need to catch up. So that's the argument. And the argument is also always about skilled labour, and we don't have the expertise in certain areas. The truth of the matter is that I think people are just coming in and working, normal jobs. And of course, the net effect of that, in many respects, has been a press on housing, a press on living standards. And there are stories in Australia now of people, places like Sydney and Melbourne, lining up with 200 people for a single, bedroom apartment. So the effect on the cost of living and the lifestyle in Australia has been quite dramatic in a short amount of time. We're all very worried about that. I'm very worried about it. And of course, this country was built on immigration. So this is, as they say, not about hating the player. It's about the game. The numbers are extraordinary at the moment. The United States had this same problem. It was illegal immigration. This is legal immigration, but the effects are the same. And you have to be in control of your borders in a country like this. And I'm very worried about where we're headed.
Where does the kind of guilt about the Aboriginal population fit into this? We obviously have a version, every Western nation in some sense has a version of it. We have a version of it in the United States.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. I saw a clip this week on social media of a journalist from our ABC going around and talking to people in the 50s and 60s about whether Aboriginal children should swim in a swimming pool with white children. Now, if you believe the left, you would say that they would say that we were a country based on racism and have always been. This is black and white footage. These people, though, responded by saying, of course they should. Why wouldn't they? They're our brothers and sisters and so on and so forth. So this construct that Australia is a racist nation has been brewing for a long period of time. It's in overdrive at the moment. I think we're the least racist nation in the world, actually. I think Australians, as I said, with that laid-back nature are very, very warm and welcoming. But the left have found a way to achieve their goals. The classic example is the Voice to Parliament referendum, which we had now. Referendum in Australia is a serious thing. It's changing our constitution. I know it happens in the US too with amendments and so forth. But a couple of years ago, the government proposed enshrining an Aboriginal voice in Parliament, which would be a sort of effectively, they would have argued, but effectively a third chamber of our government.
Right.
The Australian people shot it down. Something like 65% voted no, depending on where you go. But the rationale that was used was this rationale of guilt. You've stepped on these people for years. You need to give them a voice. Of course, it was never true. And in fact, many Aboriginal people and groups, including my friend Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, who was a leading voice against it, is Aboriginal herself and spoke against it because it's the very essence of division, effectively, giving certain people certain rights and certain categories. So we've had to fight with a lot of that. And I think Australians are waking up to it. But that ethos is alive and well in the left, and they want to push that division.
How much of this also is now that there's an integration problem for the second generation of people that have come here? I was reading even this morning about this machete ban that just was instituted in the last 6 months or so here. And it sounds like most of the violence is not from illegals. It's from second generation immigrants, meaning like 15-year-olds whose parents came here and feel different somehow or other.
Look, I think that's always been a bit of a problem. When I was growing up, there were complaints about, knife use from, second generation immigrants from Southeast Asia. So I think it has always been an issue. But certainly I think this is one of the real world effects of this problem is people do take time to accustom. They do acclimatise and become accustomed to their new environments. And many are coming from very dangerous places like, some of the war-torn parts of Africa. So, it's a very difficult balance to mix, particularly when you throw such large numbers at a community that's not necessarily geared up for that. And as I said, Australia is a sort of a deceptively small country in a very large landmass, and I think we're starting to see that play out.
Where does the Islamist part of this fall into place? Because when I tweeted out first that I was coming here, a lot of people said, Dave, you're going to have to watch out, especially, well, they mostly told me about this city, actually.
Yeah. Look, there certainly has been a wave of crime. The machete ban is one of them. Look, I don't know whether it could honestly be attributed to any one group or other. I wouldn't say that it could be, honestly, but But, you know, I mean, this is the nature of taking people from different parts of the world. I mean, you know, sometimes cultures don't always mix, and we have to be careful of that. We really do. But look, Melbourne is going through its own problems. It's got a very left-leaning government, has had for a very long period of time. And you know, if you look around, I mean, it's a sort of a city that looks like it's in trouble, honestly.
It's funny because I was expecting that, and I've only been in these few blocks. We happen to be in a particularly nice area, and so far I haven't seen the trouble part. But everyone keeps telling me about it, so I believe it's there. I just haven't seen it.
I don't think. I mean, I think it's all relative as well. I mean, there'll be parts of the US and parts.
But I go to blue cities in the US.
You'll be well acclimatized to it, I'm sure. But we're just not used to it. It's always been a very trouble-free country. You know, and I think that's been part of the problem is we have thought that our institutions will always serve us well. We've always thought that there will never be trouble in this country and that we don't have this sort of social cohesion problem because we haven't. We've had people that have mixed. We had Greeks, Italians, and people from other parts of Europe that came here after the war and would have been lumbered with many of the same problems and arguments, but have assimilated well after a generation or two. So we're just not used to it. And that's just a feature of having large numbers coming in at one time, I would say.
So you guys have a Labour majority government right now. I'm not sure when we're airing this interview, but I believe on this coming Monday, your prime minister is going to be meeting with Donald Trump in the States. What would you like Donald Trump to say to him?
Oh, well, I mean, look, well, what we need actually is to keep the partnership going. I mean, ultimately, that's really what we need. I mean, we think we are an island away from everything, but we have neighbours that are not necessarily friendly all the time. So I think the most important thing is that we keep that going. We have there's this long-running debate in Australia about AUKUS, which is an alliance between the UK and Australia, and military equipment and submarines in particular, which Australia is looking to buy. So look, I hope that all goes well because we do need it. What's been interesting though is that Australia has historically, for reasons of the past, had a connection to the United Kingdom. That all sort of changed swung to the US after Vietnam, when the United States became our main ally, perhaps, and certainly in terms of military equipment and transfer, that was the main thing. We're seeing a little bit of a swing with this Labor government away from the Trump administration, I think now back towards the sort of the European elites who have perhaps more in common politically. So
I assume you're not happy with that.
I'm not happy with that at all. No, I don't. I think, I'm a very strong believer in the US-Australian alliance, and I think we need it. And, and I hope that continues. But I would say that's a challenge at the moment because I think the Trump administration, as they unashamedly are very America first and want to know what we can do for them as much as anything else. So let's hope that continues. But I don't know. We just hope for poor old Albo the lights don't get switched off because when the lights go off in the White House, you're in trouble.
You're in a lot of trouble, and Trump is not above shutting the lights off.
He is not above it at all.
What else should we know about this country that we don't know? I mean, we've talked mostly about problems actually, but it is an incredible country.
It's an incredible country.
I mentioned to you that I was supposed to come back from my first book tour, which was going to be the only international stops we were doing because I so fell in love with it when I was here in 2018. So I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah.
So give me some of the positives.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, how long have you got? We'll probably take the rest of the week to tell him. But honestly, I mean, it is a great part of the world down here. You're close to Asia, so there's all of that other side of it. But certainly inside our boundaries. I mean, you can't go past the beaches. Not so much in Melbourne. It's a bit, it's a bit cloudy. In fact, we should be all right. But other parts of the country, you've got tropical Queensland. You've got Sydney, which has the most incredible beaches. So do Perth, some of the best metropolitan beaches you'll find anywhere in the world. In South Australia, where I'm from, it's the wine regions. It's actually like going to Europe without being in Europe.
Yeah,
and
I had a great Australian Shiraz last night.
Yeah, and they're all there, and it's great. And look, I think the most impressive thing about this country, though, is the laid back manner. We have, it is a little bit like a theme park. We have thought that the world is as friendly and as generous as Australians are. Every time we travel, you see Aussies when they travel, I think sometimes get themselves into trouble because they just think the world operates like it does when you go down the road here. And of course, it's a big, bad world out there. So, but in terms of a friendly place to come, and they love Americans too. They'll tell you they don't, but they do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of affinity with American.
Why do they tell you they don't?
Because
It's
know
not
Aussies
cool,
like to be Aussies like to be their own thing, but they'll say all sorts of things, but of course the friendship is real, and they love hearing about America, and they love the connection to America. So Americans are very, very welcome in Australia, I have to say. So it's a good thing. But the other thing I'd say is that you just can't be frightened of the wildlife here. There are no, we haven't seen a single anything in the middle of Melbourne.
Although we are in the city right now.
It has happened. There are times where Americans think it's nonsense, but there are times when kangaroos, probably not here, but certainly in Adelaide, I have seen it. In very, very built up areas, you will see a kangaroo coming through.
So when I take my guys in Sydney, we're going to go to that big kangaroo preserve, and the koalas have.
You'll see them.
What else do I have to warn them about over there?
Almost everything. I just wouldn't touch or get near anything.
Yeah.
And there are some big animals around. You go up north, and those crocodiles are serious.
Yeah.
Which made Steve Irwin all the more incredible that he was happy to.
We're from Florida. We got a lot of gators.
A lot of gators. Ours are bigger.
Spider situation. I mean,
spiders are out of control. We're getting them all the time. My wife has found 2 at home, and I did remind her this morning that we live in Australia. So, you're not getting away from the spiders here, but there are some really nasty ones. Anything with red or white on them, just step around.
Just step away. Does this qualify as Australia 101?
This is Australia 101.
Is there anything else that we should
covered
do?
Pretty much all of it, but what else can we cover? Nothing. I think we've covered it all.
You can only give Americans so much at once. I feel like this was
a little bit of a download.
It was a pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
If you're looking for more eye-opening and worldly conversations, make sure to dive into our international playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.